It's supposed to be just another routine flight, nothing unusual. 269 people are on board. Families, business travelers, and children, all expecting a calm, peaceful journey. The plane takes off from New York, heading towards Seoul, South Korea. But what they don't know, what on that plane knows, is that something has gone terribly wrong. Their flight path isn't where it's supposed to be. Instead of heading straight to their destination, they have drifted deep into restricted Soviet airspace, and this is the Cold War. In a world tense with suspicion and fear, that mistake could cost everything. What happens when two superpowers face off high above the clouds? Missiles are launched. Explosions light up the night sky. In just minutes, a routine trip becomes a deadly disaster. What really happened to Korean Air Flight 007? Do the passengers have any chance? Could this have been avoided? Stay with me because this story goes far beyond what you think you know. It's the early 1980s. The world is on edge. Two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, are locked in a silent, deadly game called the Cold War. Every move is watched. Every signal is analyzed. Suspicion and fear fill the air. Borders between East and West are heavily guarded, especially in the skies. Any unknown aircraft entering restricted airspace is treated like a threat. In this dangerous atmosphere, even a small mistake can spark a catastrophe. And that's exactly what happened with Korean Air Flight 007. Korean Air Flight 007. It's September 1st, 1983. The morning air is cool and calm at Anchorage International Airport in Alaska. A perfect day for a routine flight. On the runway sits a Boeing 747. It is large, powerful, and ready to carry 269 people across the vast Pacific. This is Korean Air Flight 007. The crew is experienced. Captain Chun Byung-in takes his seat in the cockpit, alongside his skilled co-pilots and flight engineers. They know their job well. Passengers board quietly. Some are business travelers, others are families, tourists, people with their own stories and destinations. No one suspects the danger ahead. The route is long, thousands of miles over the cold ocean and foreign lands. It cuts close to sensitive military airspace. At this moment, tensions are high. Soviet radar watches the skies carefully. Any plane straying near their borders risks being seen as a threat. But Flight 007 is just a passenger jet. It should be safe, or so everyone believes. It's the early morning of August 31st. After refueling in Anchorage, Alaska, Korean Airlines Flight 007 is ready to take off again. At 4 o'clock in the morning, the huge Boeing 747 takes off into the dark Alaskan sky. The air traffic controller tells them to turn left after takeoff. This is to line them up with a normal flight path across the Pacific. The pilots follow the instructions. Inside the plane, it's quiet. Some passengers are already asleep. Some are reading or relaxing. Nothing feels unusual, but something goes wrong. Quietly. The autopilot is set to a mode called heading. That means the plane just flies in one fixed direction, like setting a car to drive straight. But it should have been switched to another mode, one that follows a programmed route using waypoints across the ocean. That switch never happens, and no one in the cockpit notices. So now the plane is flying in the wrong direction. It starts to drift, slowly at first. A few miles off course, then more. It should be flying safely along a path called Romeo 20, which avoids dangerous areas. Instead, it's heading straight towards Soviet military airspace. There's no alarm, no warning lights. Everything inside the cockpit still looks normal. They tell air traffic control that they've reached a point called Bethel. But radar shows something else. They're actually 12 miles off course. Without knowing, the aircraft has slipped into danger. With every mile, it gets closer to the invisible line no plane should cross. The flight keeps going. The plane passes other points along the way, but not where it's supposed to. At one point, they're over 100 miles off course. Even their radio doesn't work properly. They can't reach air traffic control directly anymore. They think it's just normal interference, so they ask another Korean air flight to pass along messages for them. Still, no one realizes the plane is heading into danger. As they fly across the ocean, they cross the international date line. The calendar changes to September 1st. But something much more serious is happening. Flight 007 is now flying straight toward one of the most heavily guarded parts of Soviet territory, and the Soviets are watching. The giant Boeing 747 is still off course. By now, it's deep in Soviet-controlled airspace, without knowing it. To the passengers, nothing feels different. The cabin is calm. People are sipping drinks. A few are watching the sunrise through the windows. The crew is serving meals. No one suspects a thing. But far below, on the Kamchatka Peninsula, Soviet radar picks something up. An unknown aircraft. It's flying towards secret military bases, nuclear missile sites, highly protected zones. It's the height of the Cold War, and the Soviets fear this could be a spy plane. They scramble fighter jets. So 2 MiG interceptors launch into the air. Their orders: investigate and, if necessary, take action. Up in the cockpit of Flight 007, the pilots see nothing. No jets, no warnings, just clouds and sky. Back in Soviet command, they still don't know what kind of plane this is. It has no proper identification code, and it's flying deeper into Soviet space. At one point, the flight briefly leaves Soviet airspace and flies back over international waters. The Soviet jets pull back, but not for long. Soon, the plane re-enters Soviet airspace, this time near the island of Sakhalin. That's when the orders come through. The Soviet commander believes the aircraft is a military threat. He tells the pilot, "Target destroyed." No second guessing, no warning shot. At 3:26 in the morning, a Soviet fighter gets into position. He locks onto the target and fires. 2 missiles streak toward the passenger jet. Seconds later, they exploded near the left wing and tail of Flight 007. Inside the cabin, passengers feel a sudden jolt. The lights flicker, the plane shudders. The pilots try to control it. But something is clearly wrong. A few minutes ago, everything was calm. Now everything is chaos. Hydraulic systems are failing. Controls aren't responding the way they should. Still, the pilots are trying. They begin a slow, controlled descent just over 500 feet per minute. It's not a dive, not yet. But they are losing fuel and pressure. Cabin oxygen masks drop, passengers scream, babies cry. Some still have no idea what happened. Others are clinging to loved ones, trying to stay calm, praying it's just turbulence. The aircraft continues to descend, drifting lower and farther off course. For the next 12 minutes, it remains in the sky. The pilots are desperately trying to reach Tokyo air traffic control, but their messages are weak, broken, and hard to hear. No one on the ground understands what's happening. At 3:38 a.m., one final transmission is received. 3 simple words from the cockpit: rapid decompression descending. Then silence. The plane drops off radar, somewhere over the Sea of Japan. Flight 007 vanishes. 269 lives, gone. But the world doesn't know that yet. In Tokyo, Seoul, and New York, families wait. Airports are still announcing the flight as delayed. No one expects the truth, not yet. Because how could a commercial flight just disappear? No one imagines what's already happened. But behind closed doors, governments scramble. Radar logs are pulled. Naval ships are launched. Planes begin searching the waters near Sakhalin Island, dangerously close to Soviet territory. What they find is chilling. Floating in the waves, suitcases, torn clothing, pieces of the aircraft. But not a single life raft, not a single body. The Soviet Union refuses to help. They block the search, offer no explanation, and for nearly a month, say almost nothing. Then a meeting and a quiet handover. On September 26, 1983, nearly a month after the disaster, a joint U.S.-Japanese delegation boards a patrol boat and docks at Novelsk, a Soviet port on Sakhalin Island. They're met by 6 Soviet officials led by a KGB general. The Soviets open crates. Inside are shoes, men's shoes, women's sandals, tiny children's sneakers, 213 in total. That's what they say they found floating in their waters. No watches, no wallets, no passports, no bodies, just shoes. It's a quiet horror because everyone knows what it means. Some say the Soviets recovered more than they admitted. Some say they were hiding something. But officially, those shoes are all that remains. Then 8 days after the crash, something else happens. Waves wash up on the shores of Hokkaido, Japan, nearly 30 miles from Soviet territory with body parts, clothing, wreckage. But the Soviets still deny everything. They say it was a spy plane. They say it ignored warnings. The US and its allies demand answers. At the United Nations, outrage builds. And on television, President Ronald Reagan calls it what it is: a massacre, a crime against humanity. But still, there are no apologies. In the days and weeks after Flight 007 vanished, the world demanded one thing: answers. Why did a commercial airliner fly straight into Soviet airspace? And why did no one realize it was off course for 5.5 hours? The International Civil Aviation Organization, or ICAO, begins to dig through radar tapes, transcripts, and technical data. What they find is deeply unsettling. It wasn't sabotage. It was something far more ordinary and far more tragic. A single switch. That's all it took. The Boeing's navigation system had two modes, one where it follows pre-programmed coordinates, and another where it simply flies in a straight line based on the heading the pilots select manually. The plan was to switch over to the automatic route tracking system shortly after takeoff. But it never happened. The switch was never flipped. For reasons no one can say with certainty, the autopilot stayed in heading mode, and the aircraft, unknowingly, began drifting farther and farther north. All the while, the crew thought everything was fine. They heard no warnings, saw no errors, radioed their position as if nothing were wrong, and no one stopped them. The US radar picked it up but didn't realize it was a commercial jet. The Soviet radars tracked it, but thought it might be a spy plane. The investigation also reveals a chain of missed opportunities. Air traffic control didn't spot the error early enough. US military radar didn't notify civil aviation. The INS system never engaged, and no one noticed. The Soviets never attempted radio contact, and the pilots never realized they were flying straight into danger. But the final blow comes months later. In early 1984, the Soviet Union quietly handed over the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder, the black boxes they had secretly recovered all along. The tapes confirm it. The crew was calm. There were no alarms. And in their final moments, they never knew a missile was coming. The ICAO concludes that Korean Airlines Flight 007 was accidentally flown into restricted Soviet airspace due to improper autopilot settings and tragically shot down due to Cold War tensions and misidentification. But many questions still remain. Why didn't the Soviets try to contact the plane more directly? And why were the black boxes kept hidden for almost a year? To some, it feels like an open and shut case. To others, it still feels like a cover-up. Now, decades later, we still don't know everything. What do you think? Let us know what you believe in the comments. Was this a Cold War accident or a Cold War crime? If this story moved you, subscribe for more powerful true aviation documentaries and share this video to make sure Flight 007 is never forgotten. Thank you for watching.